Hey, welcome back to Critical Hit After Hours, drinking coffee at 10:30 p.m. Welcome to Critical Hit. This is where we look at what movies are about and see if they apply to our lives, or if they make good arguments or bad arguments. Today we're watching Wolfwalkers. It's by Cartoon Saloon, which is visually one of my favorite studios. When I first saw Secret of Kells, something broke in my brain. It was so beautiful, I didn't really know what to do. And Wolfwalkers continues that tradition, for better or worse. I might expound on that later, but it is still a beautiful film. It really is. Some of the images in this are breathtaking. This movie, at core, is about fear and how it can cage you in, and then freedom is a better posture to life, but it comes with an amount of risk. We'll get to that. Great film. First two acts are amazing, and I think it drops the ball in the third act, which we'll talk about when we get there. So let's watch it. Wolfwalkers.
You're a Wolfwalker?
So this is really cool. This is what Brian McDonald calls setting up the outer boundaries, which just essentially means if you're going to have unrealistic things in your film, you need to set them up as early as possible so the audience is like, yeah, that can happen. It'll probably be used to tell the story, to be a part of the argument. Because it's interesting, right? Like, magic powers, heals. Cool. But if that would have happened in, like, an hour from now, we would have been like, what on earth? But because it's the first scene of the film, we're just like, all right, there's magic. Let's go. So, if you're writing your own stories, the idea is like, yeah, establish all the rules of your world within the first act. Once the story starts, you should not be establishing any new world mechanics, or else the audience will be like, wait, why can that now happen? So, they did a good job. Good job, Tom. Establish a little bit of conflict between the city and the Wolfwalkers. Makes sense.
I'm not afraid of a wolf.
Yes, and that's why I must be afraid for you.
Keep that in mind. I'm not afraid of wolf. Yes, so that's why I have to be afraid for you.
Merlin, he's gone. We have to get him back.
Could have been eaten alive.
But Merlin.
Lass! No, you're not going after him.
But we can't leave him.
Look, I promised your mother I'd keep you safe. You'll be safe back in the town. It's for your own good.
So yeah, that's a pretty good demonstration of both sides of the argument. You know, her dad has to be afraid for her. She's not afraid of anything. But in being afraid for her, you have to stay inside, trying to keep you safe. All those kinds of things. Whereas she's not missing a beat just going into the forest. She's not afraid of the wolves or anything like that. So.
Don't kill me. Ha! I do what I like.
I liked that line. How just, don't kill me. I do what I like. Because, so now we've met Maeve, and the inciting incident's relatively unclear when the exact point is, but it kind of doesn't matter. It's either when she's bit, either when she meets Maeve, or either when she actually turns into a wolf the first time. One of those things. The point is, she now begins a relationship with Maeve, who is a clone character for, like, complete and utter freedom, which we'll see in a bit. But I just like that specific line. I'm just like, don't eat me. I do whatever I want. I'm free. I got no walls, no cages. Everything's great. I love that acting choice. It's a cool transition.
How can you stand living in there? I don't like being stuck in there. I miss England. I used to live there. I could go wherever I wanted, play with my friends. Sounds like the forest.
So, this is kind of where they start breaking down what freedom means. She even says it in just a moment. We'll play it. But, so they're comparing this idea of England, where she used to be free. She could run around with her friends and play and do whatever she wanted. And then Maeve says, sounds like the forest. So, that is a comparison being made. It works as it is. I was thinking it would have been more clear had they actually shown us a little glimpse of her in England, like right before they were moving or something, so then we could get a better glimpse of like what her normal is. Because like I said, it works. I would say it's not as emotionally visceral as like seeing the actual contrast demonstrated of her in England, running around, doing whatever she wants. Her dad's probably very loose with rules and everything's great. And then in contrast to her being stuck inside, always told to stay safe, just clean, you know, so on and so forth. So then it would help inform her character motivation a little more. But like I said, it works. They do it pretty well. I just thought that might be stronger.
Now he wants me to stay in town all the time. Stay here in the forest. Loads of running, playing, eating, messing, climbing. Free.
Running, eating, messing, climbing. The idea of running around with friends and laughing is kind of a definition that keeps coming up for freedom.
Aww. Look, I'm gonna help you.
Frames there was kind of dope. That's dope. I love smear frames. They're great. All right. Anyways, I caught that. So transitions in this movie are interesting. I have no other thoughts other than that. I feel like wipes are. It's just an interesting choice.
He gave you a direct order and you disobeyed him. Have you no fear of the Stokes? We need to work together to stay in this town, lass. Help me by doing your work and staying in town, away from danger.
I don't have to keep saying it. 80 times she's forced to stay in the town, it's because of his fear of leaving the town, or her getting eaten by wolves, or getting in trouble by Lord to protect her. Just keep paying attention to that.
Mother would have listened to me.
She would have wanted you safe, Robbie.
So my guess is when she gets bit would technically be the inciting incident, because I think this is now the second act, and this is exploring caged life to its fullest extent. When you just do what you're told out of someone's fear.
Just do what you're told now and you'll be grand.
It's for your
Just
own
do what
good,
you're
pal.
told.
Work is prayer, Robin.
Then I prayed the whole Bible. Need to listen to me.
Robin Goodfellow, enough of your stories. No more fairy tales.
But the-
No buts.
The Wolfwalkers.
Wolfwalkers are not real.
There's a couple interesting things just to talk about here. So one, her coming home and being completely exhausted after work is, you know, a relatable thing, especially any of us who have worked in like food service or retail or anything like that. But they depict it realistically because anytime she comes home from the forest, she's actually filled with energy. And for me, that's a really interesting thing about humans, and something I have been trying to pay attention more in myself a lot lately. Like, what gives me energy and what is exhausting. Because I find when you're doing something that you feel forced to do, that you don't have any control over, those are the things that like exhaust you. And then the things that, you know, are driven by like curiosity and learning and like you're just in the zone, those give you a lot of energy. And it's weird because like energy wise, you're not necessarily doing anything different. It's like the difference between, you know, someone who's playing video games to relax and someone who's playing video games to like train for a tournament. It's like they're not doing anything differently, but it's just a different like motivational disposition. And it's interesting, and I think that's important to pay attention to, because if you're doing a lot of things that like are exhausting and take away energy, it probably means that you're like doing things that you feel you don't have control over, and you kind of have to force yourself to live in an amount of fantasy to say this is normal, or I have to just deal with this, or whatever. And it's exhausting to juggle those thoughts, to keep those like different tabs in the browser if your brain open. And the other thing that's, I guess, worth talking about is like, I guess the frustration of the nature of the conversation that they just had, because it was a conversation of force, not an actual conversation. There was no negotiation or trying to find a common truth based on evidence or anything. It was just, yeah, I don't believe in Wolfwalkers. Nothing you can say is gonna change my mind in that, so I'm just going to speak louder and more forcefully until the conversation stops, which is not only a detrimental and unhealthy way to talk, but it's more common than we think. Obviously, I mean, it's in stories, and stories are believable because the events in stories are things that really happen. I just find that stuff interesting.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
I like how they did, like, you can hear the barking overlaid and the, like, echoey in the background. So, this whole montage is about running with your friends, free, you can do whatever you want, go wherever you want. So this is kind of the ideal of the other side of the argument.
Fast asleep, snoring away.
So, just to tie up my last point, it's like they just did a lot of physical work by running around and blah, blah, blah. And it's like they're out of breath, but their brain still has a lot of energy, which is realistic and believable because that's how humans work. This is interesting. I'd recommend you to pay attention to what gives you energy and what doesn't.
Well, don't worry. Wherever she is, we'll find her. I can help you. Yeah, there's two of us now.
So I think this is the midpoint reversal because the motivation changes from... Well, just there's a new motivation to save the mom. And from here on out, stakes kind of rise.
Oh my god!
Nonsense in this town. Follow the rules, or you will never see your father again.
Okay, and then we have Lord Protector, who, Lord Protector, promises protection, but the way he protects is by instilling fear, which is the same thing that the dad does to Robin, and eventually Robin will do to Maeve. The issue is, though, that it's not a negotiation of needs. Like, they're not trying to figure out what's a win-win for both of them. It's one person has a monopoly on the truth and then forces what they think is in the other's best interest onto them. It gets so gross because it's like, I have your best interests at heart, but I have to speak for you because you're not capable of having your own best interests at heart. I'm not going to treat you like a full human capable of making the best decision for yourself. Which, I mean, is tricky, right? Because, like, this is the quandary of being a parent. What is the line of parent? Because you want to teach a kid how to be independent, thoughtful, and problem-solving, and be okay with failure, and all those things. But there's a line. And it's hard, because you can't overprotect, because that leads to psychological problems. And you can't underprotect, because that also leads to psychological problems, or severe consequences to just something they didn't know about, like... You probably shouldn't climb a 20-foot rock side without a harness, for instance. If I had kids, I imagine that's what mine would be doing. But the point of Lord Protector in the story is just to be the ultimate conclusion of what it looks like to overprotect or force someone to do something by instilling them with fear or just plainly forcing them. You know, it's kind of like the conversations we were talking about earlier that Dad and Robin were having, where it's like it wasn't a conversation, he's just forcing what he thinks is best on them. It vaguely reminds me of a Recess episode where Gus got super freaked out about germs. He essentially canceled Recess in an effort to try to save people from potential sickness. Because, I mean, yeah, sure, we could all live in padded rooms. We'd be safe. Wouldn't get hurt. But the point that episode and this film is making is that that's not living. To live fully and with energy, it requires freedom. And then freedom requires an amount of risk. But Lord Protector's promise of protection comes at the cost of freedom. Stay inside the walls, do what you're told, and things don't get messy. Although your life does become caged and resembles a sense of death because there's no growth or wonder or like it's just stasis. You're doing the same things over and over again within these walls. I need to force you to do what's best for you. Put you in the stocks, drag you to the scullery, or actually force you into a cage.
You must do as you're told, my girl.
Yeah, the whole, like, you must do what you're told, like, that's the cage. Doing what you're told out of fear of what could potentially happen by force. That is the cage. Yeah, so think about that. Think about that in your life. What do you just do because you're told, because you're afraid of the potential consequences or risk? Living in a cage. This is a pretty song.
At least you could be free.
Robin has now succumbed to her own cage, so at least Merlin can be free.
Hey, stop, please!
This is probably my favorite part of the movie.
Robin! Stop! What are you doing? Your mother told me to keep you safe.
So, funnily enough, that's like the same answer her dad gave Robin. Your mom wanted me to keep you safe. And so, yeah, so now Robin's fear has caged Maeve.
Do not fear wild girls and wolves. I will burn this forest to the ground.
It is interesting here when he says, like, you don't need to fear the wild. Because that's the whole, like, thing, right? Like, that's what the dad's afraid of. Kind of. He's afraid of anything Lord Protector will do to Robin, but then also getting eaten by wolves in the wild and all that stuff. But, yeah, here, Lord Protector's like, don't be afraid of the wild girls or the wolves. But it's a weird twist on it, because it's like, you should be afraid of the wild and wolves, but not when I'm here. When I'm here, I will take care of it for you. You can put all of your trust in me, and that way you don't have to be afraid. He isn't encouraging, like, an existential or, like, on an individual basis, a resilience and a bravery. He's saying, depend on me, and then I'll get rid of the scary things. So in a sense, he's saying, still be afraid of all the wild. If you put your faith in me, then you don't have to.
And for heaven's sake, put manners on that girl, or manners will be put on her.
The idea of force definitely comes up a lot. And yeah, I guess threatening the fear of force. But that also makes sense, because if you're forced to do something, then you're in a cage, right? Yeah. You don't have a choice, which would be freedom.
Robin, return to your duties.
You can't!
Now, girl! Robin, what are you doing?
So this is Robin's character arc. She wasn't really afraid the whole time, except for the moment when she thought she needed to save Maeve. But here, she's doing what she wants to do. She is making her decisions for herself. She's being free, despite the risk of, how she's going to be put in the stocks, potentially get shot by her father by accident. She's standing up for what she believes in.
We must do what we're told.
Why, Father? Why?
I'm afraid. I'm afraid.
Why must we do what we're told? Because of fear.
I'm so afraid that one day you will end up in a cage.
But I already am in the cage.
Bum, bum, bum.
Until this one freed me.
She freed her because she freed herself, and despite the risk, she did what she believed in. It's beautiful.
Robin. Still. Robin, wake up, please.
I'll hold them off. Follow her.
They're in there! Advance!
So, now we've entered the third act, which should be, like, the clearest, most, final exclamation of how one needs to choose freedom despite the risk, as opposed to being afraid of others' force or forcing others into, a cage or being in a cage. You have to choose for yourself despite the risk. This is where I think things go downhill a little bit. The only real moment of this is when Robin stands up to her dad earlier. As we'll see in a moment, her dad doesn't really get to make that same choice. That whole side plot, I just don't know how to think about it. Like, things like this always get more, too complicated because it's built up on arbitrary magic mechanics, right? First off, she tells the wolves to go with Robin. to go fight them off. And then she now needs the wolves back because she realizes that she needs more wolf power in order to heal her. And it doesn't have any metaphor or like thematic value to it. It's just arbitrary plot for the sake of tension. I guess a sequence of events that allows an amount of time to go by. So it's like they need an amount of time for this war to happen between Robin and Lord Protector and the dad. And it's like, well, we need Maeve to do something. It's like, well, maybe if the wolves go out and she's not strong enough by herself. So you see what I mean? Like it always gets a little messy when you do stuff like that. And it gets messy because you just don't care that much, right? Like, you didn't know that she needed all the wolves. That wasn't a smoking gun that was set up earlier or anything, so.
She's just a girl.
By God's glory and punishment.
So, my biggest issue with this scene is he never once chooses freedom. Like, you could argue that, like, yeah, he broke free from the chains in order to protect Robin despite the risk. But the issue with that is he doesn't know he's going to turn into a wolf. And then in the end here, he just wins because he's stronger. So he's just forcing his strength onto Lord Protector, still in fear that something's going to happen to Robin. So nothing changes, and this is where the theme gets really muddy for me, and kind of, I guess, a dangerous way that I'm not a big fan of, because then it's essentially saying if you're afraid, the thing you have to do is you have to be stronger than the thing that's making you afraid. I mean, it's kind of Lord Protector's thing, right? Like, instead of being afraid of the wolves, it's just be stronger than them and force them away. And, I mean, obviously they kind of got into a little quandary here because the dad couldn't kill Lord Protector, so Lord Protector has to take his own life, essentially. But it doesn't show her dad choosing freedom regardless of the risks. Like, it'd be one thing if, I don't know, he turned into a puppy and then was just like, oh gosh, I'm not going to win this, but I have to do what I believe, or something like that. Don't do that. It's obviously a dumb idea. But you get the idea of the point where, yeah, or maybe he stayed a human. That probably would have been the better idea, is he stayed a human and confronted him. And somehow showing that, like, Robin doing it for her, in front of her dad when she, no, don't kill the mom wolf. That was great. That was a really good demonstration of how freedom is a choice, and it's a win-win for everybody if everybody takes the time to, like, pay attention and, like, talk. You know, the dad was able to admit that he does things because he's deeply afraid, and they're able to then live in an honest moment and connect with each other. And granted, you know, there are, I don't know. I was going to say there are unredeemable figures, but I'm not going to make that claim. I don't know about that. There are people who definitely, like, are more stern about forcing you to do what they want than others, and I don't have a really clean solution to handle or to handle. Look, as I'm using force again, to negotiate with those individuals. Yeah, I don't think the conclusion of this film did the matter much justice. It's essentially saying you just have to have a bigger gun, which I think is a bad idea. Put it in the records. Problem solved. See, he's still taking cues from other people. He's not making choices here. He's just kind of trying to fit in, or, you know, whatever. Trying to help, I guess. Yeah, he chose freedom. Good for him.
Don't go.
Stay, please. You're one of us.
And see? He's still just doing what he's told. He's not advocating for his own needs or wants or living freely. So the movie ends with them running and playing and doing whatever they want. Free, as the song says, wolf run free. Whereas the only people who advocated for that was Robin and Maeve. Not the dad. Just gonna stick to it. So there you go. There's Wolfwalkers. Cartoon Saloon has yet to fail on the visuals. They're always beautiful. It's not their strongest film. What's funny is I think their strongest film is the one that's not made by Tom Moore. I'm sorry, Tom. I'm interested to actually go back and look at Secret of Kells and Song of the Sea from a thematic perspective. But if any of you have seen Breadwinner, my gosh, that's a heartstring puller. I definitely think that's their strongest film story-wise. It's so good. I want to watch it again. Anyways, I would love to know what you guys thought of Wolfwalkers in the comments and anything that I had to say, or like, yeah, just pondering about freedom and doing what you're told and living caged and afraid of everything outside of the cage and how to like break free of that despite the risk. You know, it's always worthwhile to consider the risk. That's one thing I like about Shawshank Redemption is like the risk is worth it, but it's always a calculated risk. And he doesn't do stupid things. And that's a different film, but just I like it. I'm thinking about it all the time. Please let me know if there are any films you want me to watch and go through and think about. I love doing this so much. So much. Also, check out our podcast, Theme Team, where we talk about stories. I like stories a lot, I guess. I literally talk about it all the time. I hope things are going great for you guys. I hope to be able to, I guess, give glimpses into what I'm doing soon. But yeah, you know, there's always that feeling that you want to keep things under wraps, and I always question, I was like, do you really need to? And I was talking to my friend Jeb about this the other day, and I feel like there's a threshold. There's like the early idea stage where I don't think it actually matters, you know, because anybody who steals your idea is going to execute it differently. But you get far enough along, especially once you articulate a theme and characters and a world enough, it's like, okay, we should probably keep this within our circles for now. There becomes, at some point, hopefully, so much momentum that then it can become a bigger thing. But it's as a creative, it's a hard thing to know when to share and ask for feedback and when to kind of go off into the mountains and explore the inner workings of your brain. Who knows? But anyways, I've been talking long enough. See you guys later. Oh, and if you like this content, support me on Patreon or us. Kaeli's still involved with this. She may do one of these, but life is busy, like always. That's the excuse. If you're a millennial and you want to sound cool, just say you're busy. That's what everybody does. It may not be true. Who knows? Okay, I'm done. Bye. This video was produced by Frozen Was Actually Genius, Connor Fitzer, Matt Laskowski, Rockfax, Clownhound, C.S. Lewis, David M., Rachel Stephen, Miley Greenwell, Richard Roberts, Pickle Princess, Kyle M. Martin, and Amelia Allure. Thanks, guys.